I had been back on American soil for exactly 48 hours after a 9-month deployment in the Middle East, when my father sat me down at his kitchen table and told me I owed him $312,000. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was. He didn't even look at my uniform. He just folded his hands like this was a business meeting and said, "Family takes care of family, Callahan. You're paying your sister's debt, or you are no longer our daughter." I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. And in that moment, I already knew this wasn't a conversation. It was a setup. I gave them my answer. 7 days later, their entire world collapsed. But right then, I was still standing in that kitchen, still smelling my mom's overcooked pot roast, still trying to figure out how we got here. I'm an Army logistics captain. I plan supply chains. I track assets. I manage risk. I don't guess. I don't panic. I don't move money without a reason. 9 months overseas teaches you discipline, not the Instagram kind. The real kind. The kind where you learn to sit still, observe, and act only when it matters. I saved almost everything from that deployment. Hazard pay, bonuses, per diem. I didn't touch it. Didn't celebrate with it. Didn't treat myself. I had a plan. I was in the middle of renewing my top secret clearance. Tessa's CI. That's not just paperwork. That's a microscope on your entire life. Finances, contacts, behavior. Every decision you've ever made gets put under a light. So no, I don't casually move $300,000 because someone tells me to. Especially not like this. My father, Arthur, leaned back like he had just made a reasonable request. "You've been gone," he said. "You don't understand what we've been dealing with." I didn't respond. I let the silence sit there. That usually makes people uncomfortable. They start talking more than they plan to. It worked. Tatum's business hit a rough patch, he continued. Supply issues, market changes, you know how it is. No, I don't, because when I run operations, they don't hit rough patches that cost $300,000. I shifted my gaze to my sister. Tatum was sitting at the counter scrolling on her phone, like this had nothing to do with her. Perfect nails, designer hoodie, hair done like she had somewhere better to be. The golden child, always had been. She ran some online boutique, luxury fashion she called it. From what I saw, it was overpriced clothes and a lot of filtered photos. How much, I asked. Arthur didn't hesitate. $312,000, not a rounded number. Exact. That bothered me. I leaned back in my chair. Break it down. Tatum finally looked up, rolled her eyes like I was being difficult. "It's not that simple," she said. "It is to me," I replied. Another silence. My mom, Loretta, finally jumped in, right on cue, her voice already shaky like she'd been rehearsing this part. "We didn't want to ask you," she said, "but we had no choice. We're family," there it was. The word they always used when they wanted something. Family, not when I was deployed, not when I missed holidays, not when I was halfway across the world eating MREs. But now I was family. "What's the debt?" I asked again. Arthur sighed like I was exhausting him. "Business loans, credit cards, and a car." "A car," I repeated. Tatum crossed her arms. "It's for the business." "What kind of car costs $45,000 in a crisis?" I asked. She didn't answer. Of course she didn't. Because this wasn't about a business. This was about lifestyle. I could see it now. The pieces didn't fit because they were never meant to. I looked back at my father. "And you want me to just transfer the money? It's not just," he snapped. "It's your responsibility." I almost laughed. I didn't. I kept my face still. "My responsibility," I repeated. "Yes," he said, leaning forward. "We raised you. We supported you. The least you can do is help your sister when she needs it." There it was again, the transaction, love converted into debt. I glanced at my mom. She had tears in her eyes now. Perfect timing. Not a single one had fallen yet. "You don't understand what this is doing to us," she said softly. "We could lose everything." "No, they were choosing to. That's different." I sat there for a few seconds, just thinking, running numbers, running scenarios, running outcomes. Because something wasn't right. $312,000. Not about 300. Not roughly. Exact. Arthur doesn't guess numbers. He plans them, tracks them, controls them. So where did that number come from? I pushed that thought aside for a second and focused on what was in front of me. "You want me to empty my savings?" I said. "Yes," he replied. "For her business. And her car." "It's not just her," my mom said quickly. "It's the family." I nodded slowly. Then I stood up. No yelling, no arguing, just done. My chair scraped lightly against the floor. The sound cut through the room sharper than anything I could have said. I picked up my keys from the counter. Tatum scoffed. Wow. You're really just going to walk away, I looked at her. Really looked at her. You're really sitting there asking me to pay for your mistakes, I said. They're not mistakes, she snapped. You don't get it. You're right, I said. I don't. I turned to my parents. If $300,000 is the price of admission to this family, I said calmly, then consider me disowned. My mom gasped like I had just slapped her. My dad's face went cold. Don't be dramatic, he said. I didn't respond, because this wasn't drama. This was clarity. I walked to the door. No one followed me. No one stopped me. That told me everything I needed to know. I stepped outside into the cool Virginia night. The air hit different after the desert. Damp, heavy, real. The gravel crunched under my boots as I walked to my car. I didn't rush. I never rush. I got in, closed the door, and just sat there for a second. Hands on the wheel, breathing steady, running it all back in my head. The number, the tone, the timing, something was off. Bad off! I started the engine. As I pulled away from the house, I checked the rearview mirror. No lights. No one coming after me. Of course not. They thought they had time. They thought I'd come around. They thought I'd fold. They didn't know me anymore. And they definitely didn't understand what happens when you push someone, trained to assess threats, into a corner. Because what they asked for wasn't just money. It felt like something else. Something planned. Something already in motion. I drove back to base in silence. No music. No calls, just thinking. $312,000. Exact. That number stayed with me the entire drive. Like a bad signal I couldn't ignore. And I had no idea yet that it wasn't just a request. It was a problem already tied to my name. I locked my apartment door, dropped my keys on the counter, and went straight for my laptop. No shower, no food, no I'll deal with it tomorrow. That number wouldn't let me. 312,000. Exact. Arthur doesn't throw out numbers like that unless he's looking at something in front of him. A statement. A balance. A problem already documented. I sat down, opened my laptop, and logged into my military portal. My clearance renewal was still in process. That part I expected. These things take time, but then I saw it. A red flag. Not a warning, not a note, a flag. That doesn't happen unless something is wrong. I clicked into the file. My financial background check had been updated while I was deployed. Standard procedure. They pull credit. Look for debt risk factors. Anything that could make you vulnerable. And right there in the summary section, one line stood out. Significant financial discrepancy detected. I leaned back in my chair. That didn't make sense. I don't carry debt. Never have. I pay everything off. On time. Every time. I clicked deeper. The system didn't show full details, just indicators. Risk levels. Flags. But the risk level next to my name wasn't low anymore. It wasn't moderate. It was high. That's not a suggestion. That's a problem. A big one. High financial risk means one thing in my world: you're a liability. And liabilities don't keep top secret clearance. I felt something shift in my chest. Not panic. Focus. I opened a new tab and went straight to Equifax. Logged in. Two-factor authentication. Security questions. The usual. Everything felt normal. Until the dashboard loaded. I stared at the number on the screen. Then I blinked. Then I leaned closer. 480. My credit score was 480. It had been 780 before I deployed. I didn't react right away. I just sat there, processing. Because a drop like that doesn't happen by accident. It takes effort, a lot of it. I scrolled down, and that's when everything started to line up in the worst possible way. 4 credit cards, all maxed out, balances sitting just under their limits like someone knew exactly how far they could push them. 2 personal business loans, large ones, high interest, recently opened. And then I saw it. An auto loan, $45,000, BMW X3. I let out a slow breath. Of course it was. Registered in Ohio, not Virginia. Not near my base, Ohio. I clicked into the account details. The loan was active. Payments had been made, not consistently, but enough to keep it from defaulting too quickly. Whoever did this wasn't just reckless. They were trying to manage it, badly. I scrolled further. Each account had the same mailing address, a P.O. box, in my hometown. I stared at it. Same zip code, same street, same area I grew up in. I didn't need a map. I already knew exactly where it was. My hands rested on the keyboard. Still, steady, because now the picture was clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't help your sister out. This wasn't even debt. This was identity theft. While I was deployed, while I was out of the country, while I had no access to physical mail, no way to intercept anything, they had everything they needed, my social security number, my old documents, my trust, and they used it. Not once, not twice, over and over again, systematically. I clicked through each account. Dates, amounts, applications, every single one lined up with my deployment timeline. They didn't even try to hide it, because they didn't think I'd see it. Or maybe they thought I'd just fix it. Pay it off, keep quiet, protect the family. I leaned back again, stared at the ceiling for a second. Then I looked back at the screen, because this part mattered more than anything. This wasn't just about money. This was about my clearance. Unexplained debt like this. It's not just a red flag, it's a disqualifier. It means you can be pressured, manipulated, compromised. It means someone could use that debt against you. And in my line of work, that's enough to end your career. No hearing, no second chance. Just done. I clicked back into the military portal, read the flag again. Significant financial discrepancy detected. Yeah, no kidding. I checked the timestamps. The update had hit recently, very recently, which meant the clock had already started. They would expect an explanation, soon. And if I didn't have one, I wouldn't just lose my clearance. I could be flagged for further review, investigated, pulled from my position, everything I built gone, because someone decided to play business owner with my identity. I exhaled slowly. Then I went back to the credit report, pulled up the full details, account numbers, lenders, opening dates, payment histories. I needed everything, not for emotion, for evidence. Because this wasn't a family problem anymore. This was federal, fraud, identity theft, mail interception, financial deception tied to a cleared military officer. That's not something you talk through at the dinner table. That's something people go to prison for. I checked the time in the corner of my screen. 1:58 a.m. I didn't feel tired anymore. Adrenaline does that, sharpens everything, slows everything down at the same time. I grabbed a notebook, started writing. Account 1, bank name, balance. Account 2, loan amount, interest rate, car loan, $45,000, Ohio registration, P.O. box address. Everything, clean, organized. Because emotion makes people sloppy, and I don't get sloppy. Not when the stakes are this high. I paused for a second, looked at the list, then I thought about that kitchen, my father, that exact number, $312,000. He wasn't asking, he was calculating. He already knew. He knew exactly how deep this went. And he thought I'd just absorb it, like it was my job, like I was still the one fixing everything. I closed my eyes for a brief second, not to calm down, to shut something off. Because there's a moment when something crosses a line. And once it does, you don't react the same way anymore. You don't argue, you don't plead, you don't try to understand. You assess, you respond. I opened my eyes, looked back at the screen, at the accounts, at the damage, at the risk. This wasn't about betrayal anymore. That part was already clear. This was about survival, career, reputation, freedom. I reached over and adjusted the angle of my laptop screen slightly. The glow lit up the room, cold, sharp, precise. I checked the time again, 2 a.m., and just like that, the situation changed. This wasn't a family argument. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a federal felony, and I stopped thinking like a daughter. I started thinking like an officer. I was already in uniform before the sun came up, standing in front of my bathroom mirror, buttoning the last piece like nothing had changed. But everything had. I grabbed my folder, double-checked the documents inside, and walked out of my apartment without hesitation. No second guessing, no calls to talk it out. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was damage control. By 800, I was sitting in a JAG office. Clean desk, neutral walls, no personal items, just files and a computer. The kind of room where people hear things they don't want to hear. The attorney across from me didn't waste time. He flipped open my file, scanned a few pages, then looked up. "Captain Callahan," he said, "I'm going to be direct." "Please do," I replied. He tapped the paper in front of him. "You have over $300,000 in unresolved debt tied to your identity. I'm aware." He nodded once, no sympathy, just facts. In your position with a TSSCI clearance under review, that's not just a financial issue. That's a national security concern. I didn't respond. I already knew that. But hearing it out loud, different weight, if this debt is legitimate, he continued, you're considered high risk. Financial pressure creates vulnerability. Vulnerability creates leverage. I leaned forward slightly. And if it's fraud, then you need to prove it, he said, immediately. There it was, the line. No gray area. I asked. None, he replied. You either file a formal identity theft report with the FBI and the FTC, or this debt becomes yours by default in the eyes of your clearance review. I held his gaze. And if I do nothing, he didn't hesitate. You lose your clearance. A beat, best case. I didn't like the pause after that. Worst case, I asked. Administrative separation, he said. Possibly dishonorable discharge depending on how it's interpreted. I sat back. Let that settle, because that wasn't just career damage. That was everything. Years of service. Reputation. Future opportunities. Gone. Because someone opened credit cards in my name. The attorney closed the file slightly. There's more, he added. Of course there is. If you fail to report known identity theft, he said it can be interpreted as complicity. I let out a quiet breath. Meaning you knew about fraudulent activity tied to your identity and chose not to act. I nodded slowly. So not only would I lose everything, I could be seen as part of it. That was the trap. Perfectly set. I looked down at the documents I had brought. The notes, the accounts, the P.O. box, then back at him. What's my timeline, I asked. Immediate, he said. But realistically, the sooner you file, the better your position. I thought about that. Then I asked the only question that mattered. What if the people responsible are my family? He didn't react, didn't blink, didn't soften. Then they're still responsible, he said. Clean, simple, uncomfortable. I nodded once. Because that's what I needed. Not comfort, clarity. I stood up, gathered my folder, and adjusted my sleeve. Understood, I said. Captain, he added as I turned, whatever you decide, document everything. I already am. I walked out of that office with zero hesitation. Because now the situation was defined. No emotion, no confusion, 2 options, protect them or protect myself. I already knew the answer. By the time I got back to my apartment, I didn't sit down, didn't take off my uniform. I set my folder on the table, pulled out my phone, and opened a new message. Group chat, Arthur, Loretta, Tatum, 3 names, 1 thread. I stared at the screen for a second, not because I didn't know what to say, because I wanted it precise. No wasted words, no room for interpretation. I typed. I pulled my credit report. Pause. I know about the P.O. box, the loans, and the BMW. Another pause. No emotion, just facts. Then the line that mattered. You have exactly 7 days to confess, assume the debt legally, and close the accounts. I read it once. Clean, direct. Then I finished it. If you don't, I filed the federal reports. I didn't add anything else. No threats, no insults, no explanation. I hit send. And just like that, the countdown started. 7 days, not for me, for them. I set my phone down and finally sat. Not to relax, to wait. Minutes passed, then an hour. No response, of course. They needed time. Time to spin it. Time to decide if I was bluffing. I wasn't. I went through my notes again, cross-checked everything, started building a timeline. If they didn't fix this, I would. Completely, legally, thoroughly, no gaps, no loose ends. Because once this moved forward, it wouldn't stop halfway. It would hit everything. Accounts, records, history, people. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. Good. Silence means pressure. Pressure creates mistakes. I went to bed that night without setting an alarm. Didn't need one. My body was already locked in. At 0600 the next morning, I was up. Clear head, steady hands, ready. And then 24 hours after I sent that message, there was a knock on my door. Sharp, official, not casual. I stood up, walked over, and opened it. 2 military police officers, full uniform, neutral expressions. Captain Callahan, one of them asked. Yes. Ma'am, we received a report regarding your well-being. I didn't react. From who, I asked. They exchanged a quick glance. A family member, of course. I stepped back slightly. Come in. They entered, scanning the space quickly. Standard procedure, ma'am, the second officer said. We were informed you may be experiencing severe post-deployment stress and exhibiting paranoid behavior. There it was. I almost smiled. Almost. And suicidal ideation, the first added. I let that sit in the air for a second. Then I walked over to my kitchen. You guys want coffee, I asked. They blinked. Just slightly, caught off guard. No, ma'am, I just made some, I said, already grabbing 2 mugs. It's decent, not great. But it works. I poured it anyway, set the mugs on the table. Then I grabbed a folder from my counter and placed it next to them. My last full psychological evaluation, I said. Cleared before deployment, cleared after. They looked at the folder, then at me, then back at each other. I leaned against the counter calm. You can call my commanding officer, I added. Or my medical officer, or check my records directly. Silence. One of them opened the folder, flipped through, clean, every page. Exactly what I expected. No flags, no concerns. No paranoia, no instability. Just a soldier doing her job. The first officer closed the folder. Ma'am, he said carefully, this appears to be a false report. Yeah, I said. It is. Another pause. Different this time. He nodded once. We'll document it accordingly, appreciate it. They stayed for a few more minutes. Standard questions, basic checks. Then they left. Door closed. Silence again. But this silence felt different. Heavier, clearer. Because that move, that wasn't panic. That was strategy. My mother didn't call because she was worried. She called to discredit me, to build a record, to make me look unstable before I could report them, to get ahead of it. And if that didn't work, maybe I get flagged, pulled in, evaluated, delayed, silenced, all to protect a boutique and a car. I stood there in my apartment, looking at the 2 untouched mugs of coffee on the table. Then I let out a slow breath. Because that was the moment everything locked into place. Not just what they did, but how far they were willing to go. They didn't just steal from me. They were willing to ruin me, legally, professionally, mentally, if that's what it took to protect themselves. I picked up my phone. No messages, no apologies, no we need to talk. Just silence. Good. Because I was done talking. I glanced at my laptop sitting on the table, screen still dark, waiting, and I knew exactly what came next. Because this wasn't a family issue anymore. It was a case. I slipped the recorder into my jacket pocket, checked the battery twice, and locked my apartment behind me. Day 4, no replies, no accountability, just silence and one failed attempt to paint me unstable. So when my mom texted that morning, "We're throwing you a welcome home BBQ, family will be there. You should come," I already knew what it was, not a celebration, a stage. I drove out in civilian clothes, jeans, plain shirt, nothing that says rank, nothing that invites a salute. I wanted them to forget who I was for a minute. Easier to get people to talk when they think you're just family. Their house looked the same, trim lawn, fresh flowers, a banner across the porch that said, "Welcome home," like nothing had happened. Cars lined the street, neighbors, aunts, uncles, people who hadn't called me once in 9 months but somehow made time for free food. I parked down the block and walked up, slow, steady, taking it all in. Music playing, laughter, the smell of grilled meat, and underneath it tension. You can feel it when people are pretending. My mom saw me first. Of course she did. She rushed over like she'd been waiting for her cue. Arms open, smile wide, eyes already glossy. "There she is," she said, pulling me into a hug I didn't return. "My baby's finally home." I let it happen for 2 seconds, then I stepped back. "Hi, Mom." She squeezed my hands like we were fine, like we were always fine. "You look thin," she said. "Are they feeding you over there?" "I'm good." She nodded too fast. "Good, good. Everyone's so excited to see you." I scanned the yard. Clusters of relatives, people watching us but pretending not to. Conversations that stopped half a second too early when I walked closer. They knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough. Tatum made her entrance right on schedule. Sunglasses, perfect hair, tight smile, and dangling from her fingers spinning like a prop were the keys. BMW logo flashing in the sun. I clocked it immediately. So did she. "Oh my God, Callahan," she said loud enough for half the yard to hear. "You finally made it. Finally." Like I was late to my own ambush. She walked closer, still twirling the keys. "You look military." "I am military," she smirked. "Right, I didn't engage. I didn't need to." Because she wasn't talking to me. She was performing, for them. I grabbed a paper plate from the table, put some food on it, didn't eat, just held it. People came up, hugs, questions, safe topics. How was it over there? Must be nice to be back. Your parents missed you so much. I nodded. Kept it short. Didn't offer anything, because the real conversation hadn't started yet. It didn't take long. My dad found me by the grill. Of course he did. Neutral ground. Casual setting. Easier to make something serious look small. He stood next to me flipping burgers like this was just another Sunday. You didn't answer your phone, he said quietly. I didn't need to. He nodded once, jaw tight. This isn't the place for this, he said. You chose the place. He glanced over his shoulder, people nearby, listening without looking. This is a welcome home party, he said. Your mother worked hard on this. No, I said. She worked hard on something else. That hit. He set the spatula down. Lower your voice, he said. I didn't raise it. I'm fine. He exhaled slowly, tried a different angle. Look, he said softer now. Don't tear this family apart over money. Money, still calling it that. We were going to pay it back, he added quickly. There it was, not denial, admission. Partial, but enough. I kept my face neutral. How, I asked. He hesitated. Just for a second. That's not the point. It is to me. He leaned in closer, voice dropping. I signed your name on the proxy form you left me before you deployed, he said. It gave me authority. We didn't think it would get this big. Proxy form. I filed that away. That form was for vehicle storage, I said. Not loans. Not credit. It gave me access, he snapped. We used what we had. You used what I trusted you with. He realized he said too much. Too late. He shifted again, trying to regain control. Just sign the paper, he said. We drafted something. It makes it a gift. Clean, no legal mess. There it was. The real reason for the party, not witnesses. Pressure. A document buried under potato salad and fake smiles. I turned my head slightly and saw my mom approaching, holding a folder. Of course she was. Timing was perfect. Tatum wasn't far behind, still with the keys, still playing her role. My mom stopped in front of me. Smile tight now. Honey, she said, we just need you to sign something small, just to clear everything up. She opened the folder like it was nothing. I didn't look at it. I didn't need to. Because I already knew what it said. Voluntary gift. No repayment expected. No fraud. No crime. Just me, choosing to hand over $300,000. I let the silence sit, let them feel it. Then I looked at my dad. Really looked at him. And I smiled. Not warm, not kind, just empty. I leaned in slightly, just enough so only he could hear me. 3 days left, Dad. That was it. No yelling. No scene. Just truth. I stepped back. My mom was still holding the folder, waiting. Tatum looked confused now, less confident. Good. Because the performance was cracking. My dad's face changed. Fast, the color drained, eyes tightened. He understood. Finally. This wasn't a bluff. This wasn't going away. This wasn't something they could fix with a signature and a story. I placed my untouched plate on the patio table. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't explain. I just walked. Across the yard. Past the people. Past the music. No one stopped me. They just watched. Because even if they didn't know the details, they knew something just broke. I got in my car and closed the door. Silence again. I started the engine, hands steady, breathing even. As I pulled away, I checked the mirror. My dad was still standing by the grill, not moving, just watching. And for the first time, he looked scared. I drove off without looking back again, because I didn't need to. The countdown was real now. 3 days, 72 hours, and whatever they thought they could control was already slipping. Ready. I set my phone face down on the table and kept working through my notes. Day 6. No apology, no correction, no accounts closed. Just silence stretched thin over panic. That's how pressure works. It doesn't explode right away. It compresses, tightens, makes people do things they can't take back. I had already drafted everything I needed. Account summaries, timelines, supporting documents, screenshots of the credit report, copies of the flagged clearance notice, clean, organized, ready. Because if they didn't act by midnight, I would. No hesitation, no second pass. Just submit. I checked the time. 11:32 p.m., 28 minutes. I leaned back in my chair and let the room go quiet. No TV, no music, no distractions. Just the sound of my own breathing and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I didn't feel angry. That part was gone, replaced by something colder, clarity. I picked up my phone and checked the group chat again. Still nothing, not even a denial. That told me everything. People who are innocent argue. People who are guilty stall. 11:41 p.m. I opened both tabs on my laptop. FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center. FTC Identity Theft Portal. Forms filled out. Names entered. Dates aligned. All I had to do was press submit. I placed my finger on the trackpad for a second. Not to hesitate, to confirm. Once this goes through, it doesn't come back. This isn't family anymore. This is federal. 11:46 p.m. My phone lit up. Caller ID, Dad. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. Yeah, no greeting, no hi, just acknowledgement. His breathing hit the line first. Uneven, shallow. Callahan, he said, voice low, tight. I didn't respond. Let him fill the silence. We need to talk, he added quickly. We had 7 days, I know, he said. I know, He stopped. You could hear it. The moment where the story he planned fell apart. Just say it, I said. Another pause, then he broke. It wasn't supposed to get like this. There it was. Not denial, admission. I stayed quiet. We just needed a bridge loan, he said. That's all it was, just something to keep Tatum's business afloat until things stabilized. I looked at the laptop screen in front of me. Forms ready, clock ticking. She had inventory coming in, he continued. Orders backed up, cash flow issues. You know how business works. No, I said. I know how numbers work. He ignored that. We were going to pay it back, he said again. Every cent. With what, I asked. Silence. Then he exhaled hard. She said sales would pick up. Of course she did. And when they didn't, I asked. His voice dropped. She kept spending. There it was, finally, truth stripped down. She said it was an investment, he added. Brand image, client perception. That's why she got the car. The BMW, I said. Yeah. I nodded to myself, even though he couldn't see it. And the credit cards, I asked. For inventory, he said quickly. Marketing, ads, website upgrades. All in my name. Another silence. He convinced himself it was temporary. We had your information, he said finally. Your social security number, your old documents, everything. I didn't react. I already knew. We thought you wouldn't even notice, he said. You were deployed. You had your own responsibilities. We didn't want to add stress. I almost laughed. Didn't. So you opened accounts, I said. Yes. Took loans. Yes. Bought a car. Yes. And the mail, I asked? That one took longer. We intercepted it, he said. Plain. No excuse this time. We set up the P.O. box, he added. Forwarded everything there, so I'd never see it. Never question it. Never stop it. You committed mail fraud, I said. He didn't argue. And bank fraud, I added. Nothing, just breathing, heavy now, unsteady, because he heard it, not as a daughter accusing him, as a fact. We did what we had to do, he said finally. I leaned back in my chair. No, I said. You did what you chose to do. That's not fair, he snapped. There's nothing fair about this. Silence again, then his voice shifted. Desperation. Callahan, please, he said. Don't do this. We can fix it. We'll take care of it. Just give us more time. You had time. Not enough. It was 7 days. That's not enough to fix $300,000. I didn't respond. Because that was the point. You don't get extra time when you create the problem. You're going to destroy this family, he said. I let that sit for a second. Then I answered. You already did. That landed. Hard. I could hear it in the way his breathing changed. Short. Sharp. Like something just collapsed inside him. We're your parents, he said. And I'm your daughter, I replied. The one you used. Silence. Longer this time. He didn't have anything left. No angle. No justification. Just the truth sitting between us. Ugly and final. I looked at the clock. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute. You didn't intercept my mail to protect me, Dad, I said. My voice was steady, measured. Each word placed exactly where it needed to be. You did it to protect yourselves. He didn't respond, because he couldn't. The 7 days are up. I ended the call. No goodbye. No pause. Just done. I set the phone down, looked at the screen. Midnight, 12 a.m. I moved my hand to the trackpad, clicked the FBI submission first. A brief loading icon, then confirmation. Submitted. I switched tabs. FTC portal. Reviewed once. Clicked submit. Another confirmation. 12:01 a.m. That was it. No explosion, no sound, no dramatic shift in the room. Just two quiet confirmations on a screen. But I knew what those meant. Those reports don't sit in a folder. They move. Fast. Automated systems pick them up. Flags get triggered, accounts get reviewed. Banks get notified. Patterns get traced. And when multiple institutions see the same thing at the same time, they don't wait. They act. I closed my laptop. Finally leaned back, not relieved, not satisfied, just finished. Because my part in this done. Whatever happened next wasn't up to me. It was up to the system they forced me to involve. I turned off the light and let the room go dark, silent, still. And somewhere out there, data was already moving, quietly, efficiently, unstoppable, heading straight toward everything they thought they could control. I was halfway through my morning report when my phone buzzed against the desk. I didn't look at it right away. Routine first, always. Finish the task, then check the noise. That's how you stay in control. I signed off on the last line, closed the file, and finally picked up my phone. 3 missed calls, same number, Tatum. I let out a slow breath, right on schedule. I didn't call back. Instead, I set the phone down and went back to work. Because whatever was happening on her end, it had already started, and nothing I said now would change it. About 10 minutes later, it buzzed again. This time, I answered. Not because I had to, because I wanted to hear it. Yeah, she didn't even try to pretend. You did this? Her voice was loud, sharp, breaking, no greeting, no build-up, just panic. I leaned back in my chair. What happened, Tatum? Don't play stupid, she snapped. They're taking my car. There it was. I pictured it immediately. Tuesday afternoon. Some overpriced cafe she probably called a client meeting space. Her version of a boardroom. They just pulled up with a tow truck, she said, voice shaking now. In front of everyone, I didn't interrupt. Let her run. They're hooking it up right now, she said. You need to call them, tell them it's a mistake. I glanced at the clock on the wall. Timing lined up. Exactly. Because once those fraud flags hit the system, the banks don't sit on it. They act. Fast. Especially on secured assets. Like cars. Who's they? I asked calmly. The bank, she shouted. Some driver with paperwork saying the loan is fraudulent? I nodded to myself. Good. That means the report went through clean. That's not possible, she added quickly, like saying it out loud would make it true. I've been making payments, inconsistent payments, partial coverage, just enough to delay this moment, not enough to stop it. Apparently not enough, I said. She went quiet for half a second, then exploded again. My clients are here, she yelled. Do you understand that? They're watching this. I could hear voices in the background now. Confusion, whispering, someone asking questions. Public. Exactly where she built her image, and exactly where it was collapsing. Then you should probably handle it, I said. I am trying to handle it, she snapped. But they won't listen to me. Of course they won't. She's not on the loan. I leaned forward slightly. What did the paperwork say? I asked. She hesitated. Just long enough. It says the financing was obtained under false identity, she said, voice lower now. That the account holder reported it as fraud. There it is, spelled out, plain, real. And whose identity was that? I asked. Silence. Heavy this time. Not confusion, not denial. Recognition, because now she knew. Not just that it was happening, but why. You, she said slowly. I didn't answer. You actually did it, she added. I could hear it in her voice. The shift, from anger to disbelief, to something closer to fear. They told you, I said. They showed me the name on the report, she replied. Your name. Good. No ambiguity. No room for her to twist it. You ruined me, she said. I let that sit. Then I answered. No, I said. You did that yourself. Her breathing got louder. Faster. You don't understand, she said. I have meetings. I have orders. I have a car you never paid for. I cut in. I was going to... When she didn't answer. Because there was no answer. Just delay. Just excuses. They're taking it, she said again, voice cracking now. Right now, I'm standing here watching them take it. I pictured it clearly. Tow truck backed up to the curb. Hook secured. Front wheels lifting. Her standing there with those keys in her hand like they meant something. Clients watching. Neighbors walking by. Phones probably out. Because people love a scene. especially when it involves someone who always pretended everything was perfect. You need to fix this, she said. That one almost made me laugh. Almost. I already did, I replied. You need to call them back, she shouted. Tell them it's a mistake. It's not. Another pause. Then quieter. What am I supposed to do? That question wasn't for me. It was for herself. But I answered anyway. Take responsibility. She let out a shaky breath. You can't just leave me like this. I looked down at my desk, at the paperwork, at the uniform sleeve on my arm. You left me first, I said. With $300,000 of fraud tied to my name. Silence. Longer this time. I could hear the tow truck engine in the background now. Low, steady, working. I didn't think you'd go this far, she said finally. That part was honest. No, I said, you didn't. Because she thought I'd absorb it. Like always, fix it, pay it, protect them. That's what I used to do. Not anymore. My life is over, she said. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. It's just catching up to you. She started crying then. Not quiet, not controlled. Loud, messy, public, exactly the kind of breakdown she couldn't hide behind filters and captions. They're taking it, she repeated. They're really taking it. I didn't soften, didn't comfort, didn't step in. Because this part mattered. You drove a stolen car for 2 years, Tatum, I said. My voice stayed even, cold. You should be glad it's a tow truck taking it. I paused just long enough. And not a federal marshal taking you. She went silent, completely, like the words finally landed. Not as a threat, as reality. Then the line disconnected. I set the phone down, didn't call back, didn't check messages, because that was the first domino. Just one. The car was visible, immediate, public. But the rest? Those were quieter. Bank accounts flagged, transactions frozen, merchant services under review. Because once fraud hits one part of the system, it spreads. Fast, patterns get flagged, connections get traced. And businesses built on unstable money, they don't hold. They collapse. I picked up my pen and went back to my report. Finished what I was doing, because my job didn't stop. My life didn't stop. Only theirs did. And somewhere out there right now, my mom was realizing that this wasn't contained anymore. That this wasn't just about a car or a few accounts. This was bigger. And panic like that. It makes people do one last desperate thing. Something reckless. Something final. Something they can't undo. I was reviewing a logistics schedule when my desk phone rang. Not my cell, not a casual call. The desk line. I picked it up. Captain Callahan. Ma'am, this is the visitor control center at the main gate. I paused for half a second. Already knew. Go ahead. We have 2 individuals here requesting access. They're being persistent. Names. A short pause. Arthur Callahan, Loretta Callahan. Of course, right on time. Desperation always shows up in person. I leaned back slightly in my chair. What exactly are they doing? I asked. They're demanding immediate access, he said carefully, raising their voices, claiming it's a family emergency. I nodded to myself. Same play, different location. They do not have authorized access, he added. Correct, I said. Another pause. They're requesting that you come to the gate. I looked at the clock. Midday, public, controlled environment. Good, I'll be there, I said. But not alone. I hung up and grabbed my folder. Then I made 2 more calls. First to JAG, second to military police. No emotion in either conversation, just facts. Location, names, context. By the time I stepped outside, everything was already in motion. I didn't rush. I never rush. Walking across base boots hitting pavement, I felt steady, clear, because this was no longer reaction. This was execution. The main gate came into view. 2 MPs already posted near the visitor center. And right there, just beyond the barrier, were my parents. Arthur pacing, Loretta talking loudly to the guard behind the glass. Hands moving, voice sharp, performance in full effect. They hadn't seen me yet. Good. I slowed my pace slightly as the JAG attorney stepped up beside me. Neutral expression. Folder in hand. Professional. Exactly what I needed. 2 MPs fell in behind us. Not aggressive, just present. Visible authority changes everything. As we got closer, Loretta spotted me. Her entire posture shifted. Instant. Like a switch flipped. Her face softened. Her voice dropped. And then she rushed forward. "Callahan," she said, arms opening wide like this was a reunion. I stopped. Didn't move toward her. Didn't meet her halfway. I just stood there. She closed the distance anyway. Reached for me. And I stepped back. Just one step. But it was enough. Enough to break the image. Her hands hung in the air for a second before she pulled them back. Confusion flickered across her face. Not real confusion, the kind people show when their script doesn't land. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice tight now. "Keeping distance," I said. Arthur stepped in then, more controlled, less emotional, trying to salvage it. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I replied. "You needed to talk 6 days ago." His jaw tightened. "This isn't the place for this," he said. "You came here," I said. That shut him up. For a second. Then he tried again. "Things have gotten out of hand," he said. "We need to fix this before it gets worse." I held his gaze. "It already is worse." Loretta jumped back in. "This is insane," she said. "You're dragging your own family through something that can be handled privately." I almost smiled. Privately. Like fraud is a private matter, like federal reports just disappear if you ask nicely. "This is not private," I said. "Yes, it is," she snapped. "It's family." "No," I said. "It's a crime." That word landed, hard. I saw it in the way her expression cracked for just a second. Then she recovered. "Because that's what she does. Shift, adapt, redirect. You don't understand what you're doing," she said. "You're going to ruin us." I let that sit. Then I answered. "You already handled that." Silence. Heavy now, the kind that draws attention. The guards were watching. The MPs behind me hadn't moved, but their presence was enough. Arthur looked at them, then back at me, then at the attorney beside me. And that's when it clicked for him. This wasn't a conversation. This was documentation. The JAG attorney stepped forward. Calm, measured. "Mr. Callahan," he said, holding out a thick manila envelope. "You'll want to take this." Arthur hesitated, then took it, slowly, like it might explode. He opened it, flipped through the contents. First page, cease and desist. Second, copy of the FBI report. Third, FTC identity theft filing. And then the transcript, word for word, his voice, his confession, every detail laid out in black and white. I watched his face as it hit him, line by line, word by word. There's the moment when denial runs out of space, when reality finally catches up. "That was it?" Loretta leaned in. "What is that?" she demanded. He didn't answer, couldn't. So she grabbed the papers, scanned them, and I saw it happen again. The crack. Bigger this time. "Callahan," she said slowly. "What is this?" I stepped forward just enough. Not close, just clear. "You are standing on federal property," I said. My voice didn't rise, didn't need to, holding evidence of federal bank fraud. Her hands shook slightly, barely visible, but I saw it. "Leave now," I continued. I let that hang for a second, then finished it. "Or the MPs will detain you for the FBI." Silence, complete. No more performance, no more control, just reality. The MPs behind me shifted slightly, not aggressive, just enough. Hands near their vests, posture ready, and that's when it broke. Loretta's knees buckled, not dramatic, not exaggerated, just gave out. She caught herself on the edge of the counter, breathing uneven, eyes wide. Arthur didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, holding that envelope like it weighed more than it should, because now it did. Now it wasn't paper, it was consequence. "This isn't happening," Loretta whispered. It was, every second of it. I didn't step forward, didn't help her, didn't soften, because this wasn't my moment to fix. This was theirs to face. Arthur finally looked up, at me, really looked this time. No control, no authority, just fear. "We're leaving," he said quietly. "Good choice." He helped Loretta stand, took her arm, steadying her. They turned, slow, uncertain, and walked toward their car. No yelling, no threats, no last attempt, just gone. The MPs stayed in place until they cleared the gate. Protocol, clean, controlled. I watched them go, didn't feel anything. No satisfaction, no relief. Just closure, because this part, done. They got in the car, doors closed, engine started, and just like that, they were outside the gate, off federal property. Back in the world where consequences don't wait. I turned slightly. The JAG attorney gave a small nod. Everything handled. Exactly as it needed to be. I nodded back. Then I walked away. Didn't look back. Didn't need to, because whatever they thought they could still control was already gone. And that long drive back, 3 hours of silence. 3 hours with nothing but those papers sitting between them. No more illusions, no more narratives. Just reality catching up, slow, relentless, and impossible to outrun. I signed the last form, slid it across the desk, and didn't ask any questions. Because by that point, there were no surprises left, just outcomes. Months had passed. Not fast, not slow, just steady. That's how consequences move. Quiet at first, then everywhere at once. The investigation didn't drag. It didn't need to. The evidence was clean, documented, time-stamped, recorded. My father's voice did most of the work. That midnight call. It didn't just help, it closed the case before it even started. Arthur took a plea deal. He didn't have a choice. The charges were clear: bank fraud, identity theft, mail fraud. Not small things. Not things you explain away at a dinner table. He avoided prison. Barely. 5 years of probation, full financial restitution, and the forced sale of his business. Everything he built over decades liquidated, piece by piece, to pay back what he took. I didn't go to the hearing, didn't need to. I already heard the only thing that mattered: the truth. Tatum didn't handle it as well. Of course she didn't. Her version of control was always image. An image doesn't survive investigation. Her accounts were frozen, then audited, then shut down. Her boutique gone. No dramatic ending, no final sale. Just closed. Inventory seized, transactions flagged, and a long list of questions she couldn't answer. She filed for bankruptcy within weeks. That part was predictable. What wasn't? Seeing her name show up on a retail employee schedule a few months later. Minimum wage. Folding clothes, helping customers. No brand, no clients. Just work. Real work. The kind she avoided for years. I didn't feel bad, not because I'm cold, because I'm realistic. Actions have weight, and eventually they land. My mother stayed quiet the longest. No calls, no visits, no more performances, because there was no audience left. The extended family stopped reaching out too, not dramatically, just less. Fewer messages, fewer invitations. People don't like standing too close to situations they don't understand. Or worse, situations they do understand but don't want to admit. And me, I kept moving, because my life didn't stop. It couldn't. The clearance review took time. Of course it did. They went through everything, every account, every report, every step I took. Not to question me, to confirm I did it right. And I did. Clean reporting, immediate action, full cooperation, no delay, no hesitation. That matters. A lot. When the final notice came through, I read it once. Then set it down. Clearance renewed. No conditions, no flags. Just restored. Exactly where it was supposed to be. My credit followed. Accounts removed. Fraud cleared. Score corrected. It took time. But systems work when you use them the right way. You just have to be willing to let them run. Promotion came a few weeks later. Major. No ceremony. No big moment. Just orders. Signed, effective immediately. I adjusted the rank on my uniform the same way I do everything else. Calm, precise. Because titles don't change who you are. They reflect what you've already proven. One afternoon, months after everything settled, I checked my mail. Actual mail. Not forwarded. Not intercepted. Mine. There was one envelope that stood out. Handwritten address. Familiar. I didn't open it right away, just held it for a second. Felt the weight, light but intentional. I went inside, sat down, opened it clean, no hesitation. It was from my mother. Of course it was. The letter wasn't long. It didn't need to be. People like her don't write to understand, they write to rewrite. You destroyed this family, it said. No greeting, no apology, just blame. She talked about sacrifice, about everything they did for me, about how I chose outsiders over blood, about how things could have been different if I had just helped. I read it once, start to finish, no reaction, no anger, because none of it was new. It was the same story, same script, just written instead of spoken. I folded the letter, carefully, not aggressively, not emotionally, just done. Then I placed it in a folder, labeled, filed, next to everything else, not as a memory, as a record, because that's what it is, proof of where the line was and why it stays there. I leaned back in my chair and let the room go quiet. No noise, no tension, just space, clean space. The kind you don't realize you need until it's there. They expected me to fall on my sword. That's the phrase, right? Be the good soldier. Take the hit. Protect the unit. Even if the unit is the one breaking you. They got one part right. I am a soldier. What they forgot is what soldiers are actually trained to do. We don't walk into traps. We don't ignore red flags. And we definitely don't sacrifice ourselves for someone else's bad decisions. We assess, we adapt, we act. That's it. Simple. Not easy, but simple. I looked around my apartment. Everything in its place. Everything earned. Everything mine. No hidden accounts, no borrowed identity, no weight that doesn't belong to me. That's peace. Not the soft kind, the real kind. The kind you build by saying no when it matters. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been put in a position where the people who were supposed to protect you expected you to carry the cost of their mistakes, where family suddenly meant obligation instead of respect? If that's you, drop a comment. I mean it, because more people are dealing with this than they admit. And if you've ever been told that loyalty means silence or sacrifice without limit, you need to hear this. Loyalty is earned, not extracted. And once someone shows you they're willing to use your name, your time, or your life without your permission, that's not family. That's a liability. Hit subscribe if you want more stories like this. Real ones. Ones that don't end with apologies. They end with boundaries. Because mine, they're not moving. Not anymore. My peace is no longer for sale. I sat at my desk one night long after everything was over and realized something that bothered me more than the money ever did. It wasn't the number. It wasn't the fraud. It was the precision. They didn't guess. They didn't stumble into it. They knew exactly what they were doing. And more importantly, they knew exactly who they were doing it to. That's the part people don't like to talk about. When something like this happens, everyone focuses on the damage, the money, the legal fallout, the consequences. But the real story is access, because strangers don't get that close. Strangers don't have your social security number sitting in a drawer. Strangers don't know when you'll be out of the country. Strangers don't know how long you'll stay quiet. Family does. And that's what makes it dangerous. I used to think family automatically meant safe, not perfect, not easy, but safe. That assumption cost me more than anything else, because I didn't protect myself from them. I protected myself from everyone else. That's the blind spot, the place you don't look because you don't think you have to. And if you don't look at it, that's exactly where the problem starts. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Family is not automatically an asset. Sometimes it's a liability. And if you don't understand the difference, you'll keep paying for it. Not always in money, sometimes in time, sometimes in stress, sometimes in opportunities you never get back. In my case, it almost cost me my entire career, all because I assumed certain lines would never be crossed. But here's what I learned. People don't wake up one day and decide to commit fraud out of nowhere. It builds, step by step, small justifications, small excuses. Just this once. It's temporary, they won't even notice. And every time nothing happens, the line moves until one day there is no line left. And you're standing there trying to figure out how something got this far. The answer, it didn't happen all at once. It happened slowly, quietly. While you were busy trusting them, there were signs. Of course there were. I just didn't call them what they were. I called them family behavior. Tatum always pushed limits. Spent more than she had. Expected things to work out. Expected someone else to step in. My mom always protected that. Always reframed it. Always turned mistakes into misunderstandings. And my dad. He made it work. He filled the gap. Kept things stable, no matter what it cost. That pattern didn't start with me. I just became the biggest resource in it. And once I had something they needed, money, stability, access, the pattern scaled up. That's what people miss. It's not about the event. It's about the pattern behind it. If someone consistently avoids responsibility, if someone always has a reason why it's not their fault, if someone expects help but never changes behavior, that doesn't fix itself. It grows. And eventually it lands on someone who can carry it. That someone was me, until it wasn't. There's another part people struggle with. They think saying no makes them the problem, like they're the one breaking something. But here's the reality. If your no breaks the relationship was already broken. You just exposed it. That's a hard thing to accept. because it forces you to see people clearly, not how you remember them, not how you want them to be, but how they actually operate. And once you see that you can't unsee it, I didn't lose my family because I reported fraud. I lost them the moment they decided I was a resource instead of a person. Everything after that was just the outcome catching up. There's a specific kind of person who ends up in situations like this: disciplined, reliable, responsible, the one who shows up, the one who fixes things, the one people depend on. Sounds like a compliment, until it isn't. Because if you don't set limits, that role turns into expectation. And expectation turns into entitlement. And entitlement, that's where it crosses the line. You stop being someone they appreciate and start being someone they rely on without permission. That's the shift. And once it happens, it doesn't reverse on its own. You have to stop it. And stopping it doesn't feel good. It feels wrong. It feels cold. It feels like you're the one causing damage, but you're not. You're just refusing to absorb it. That's the difference. There's something else I want to be clear about. This isn't about cutting people off the second things get hard. It's about recognizing when support turns into exploitation. Helping someone once, that's normal. Helping someone twice, still normal. Helping someone who refuses to change, that's a problem. Because at that point, you're not helping. You're enabling. And enabling always has a cost, usually paid by the person doing it. I paid mine up front, in full, and I got it back. Not because I fought harder, but because I stopped pretending it wasn't happening. That's the part people avoid. They wait, they hope, they try to manage it quietly. But situations like this don't shrink. They expand, and the longer you wait, the worse it gets. So if there's one thing I took from all of this, it's simple. Pay attention to patterns, not promises, not intentions, patterns, because patterns don't lie. People can say anything, explain anything, justify anything. But what they actually do, that's consistent, that's real. And if you ignore it long enough, it becomes your problem. I learned that the hard way. But I learned it once, and that's enough. Because now, I don't assume access, I don't assume loyalty, and I definitely don't assume safety just because someone shares my last name. That doesn't make me cold. It makes me aware. And awareness, that's how you stop things before they start. Or at least, before they cost you everything. I closed the folder, set it aside, and looked at the line I drew that night at the kitchen table. Not the words, the decision, because that's what it was. Not anger, not impulse, a decision. People like to frame boundaries as emotional. Like you set them because you're upset, because something hurt, because you need space. That's not how this works. Boundaries aren't emotional. They're strategic. You don't set them because you feel something. You set them because you understand what happens if you don't. That's the difference most people miss. When I said no to $300,000, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel empowering. It didn't feel like some big moment. It felt heavy, uncomfortable, like I was about to break something that had been there my whole life. And in a way I was. But here's the part people don't want to admit. Some things need to break because they're built on the wrong foundation. And if you keep supporting that foundation, you're just delaying the collapse, not preventing it. There's a pattern I've seen over and over again. People think if they just explain themselves clearly enough, the other person will understand. They'll see the logic. They'll adjust. They'll respect the boundary. That works with reasonable people. It doesn't work with people who benefit from ignoring your boundaries. That's the difference. If someone is gaining something from your silence, your patience, your willingness to help, they're not motivated to change. They're motivated to keep going. That's why I didn't argue at the table. I didn't explain my position. I didn't try to make them see my side, because they already saw it. They just didn't care. What they cared about was the outcome. They wanted access, money, control. And once someone is focused on outcome, your reasoning doesn't matter. Only your response does. That's where most people get stuck. They stay in the conversation too long. They keep trying to fix something that isn't broken on the other side. Because from the other side, it's working perfectly. That's a hard realization. But it's necessary. Because once you see it, your approach changes. You stop negotiating, you stop explaining. You start deciding, and decisions don't require agreement. They require action. Here's another thing people misunderstand. They think boundaries are just words. I'm not comfortable with that. I need you to respect this. That doesn't work for me. Those are requests, not boundaries. A boundary without a consequence is just a suggestion. And suggestions get ignored, especially by people who are used to ignoring them. Real boundaries have structure, they have clarity, and they have follow-through. Not threats, not warnings. Follow-through. When I sent that message 7 days, fix it or I file, I wasn't hoping they'd listen. I was giving them a window, a chance. That's it. After that, the outcome was already decided. Because I knew something they didn't. If I didn't act, I would lose everything. My clearance, my career, my future. So the decision wasn't between protecting them or protecting myself. It was between losing everything or doing what needed to be done. Once you frame it that way, it's not emotional anymore. It's operational. There's also this idea that setting boundaries makes you cold, uncaring, selfish. I heard that, not directly, but in tone, in looks, in the way people stopped reaching out. Like I had crossed some invisible line. But here's the reality. People only call you cold when they can't control you anymore. Before that, you're dependable, you're supportive, you're such a good person. After that, you're distant, difficult, changed, no. You're just not available in the same way. And that's what they're reacting to. The loss of access, not a change in your character. That's important to understand. Because if you don't, you'll start second-guessing yourself. You'll wonder if you went too far, if you could have handled it better, if there was another way. Maybe there was, but here's the question that matters. Would that other way have protected you? If the answer is no, it doesn't matter. Because protecting yourself isn't optional. It's required, especially when the threat isn't external. It's internal, close, familiar. That's when it matters most. I didn't enjoy any part of what happened. Not the report, not the investigation, not the outcome, but I don't regret it. Because regret comes from acting against what you know is right. And I didn't. I acted exactly in line with what the situation required. That's the standard I hold. Not comfort, not approval. Alignment with reality, with consequences, with responsibility. So if you're in a situation where someone is pushing past your limits, using your time, your money, your name, your energy, ask yourself one question. What happens if I don't stop this? Not what they'll think, not how they'll react. What happens to you? Because that answer tells you everything you need to know. And once you know it, the next step is simple. Not easy, but simple. You decide, and then you act. No negotiation, no delay, no apology for protecting what's yours. That's what a real boundary looks like. Not emotional, not dramatic, strategic. And once you understand that, you stop asking for permission and start taking control. I leaned back in my chair, looked at everything that had happened, and asked myself one simple question. If someone else were sitting where I was sitting, what would they actually need to do? Not what sounds good, not what feels right, what works. Because once you strip the emotion out of a situation like this, what you're left with is process. And process is what protects you. So let's make this clear. If someone is using your identity, your money, or your name without your permission, you are not dealing with a family issue. You are dealing with a legal one. That distinction matters because the way you respond changes everything. The first thing you do is verify. Not assume, not guess. Verify. Pull your credit report. All of it, not just one source. Check everything tied to your name, accounts, loans, addresses, dates, because you need to see the full picture before you move. Half information leads to bad decisions. And bad decisions cost more time, more money, more damage. Once you see it, you document. Everything, screenshots, statements, emails, messages, anything that connects the activity back to you. Don't rely on memory. Don't rely on, I'll remember this. You won't. And even if you do, it won't matter. Because what counts is what you can prove, not what you can explain. That's a hard shift for a lot of people. They think if they tell their story clearly enough, someone will understand. That's not how this works. Systems don't respond to stories. They respond to evidence. So you build it. Clean, organized, chronological, like it's going to be reviewed by someone who has no idea who you are, because it will be. The next step is where people hesitate. They confront, they call, they try to talk it out. Don't, not yet. Because if the other person knows you're onto them, they'll adjust. They'll move things, close accounts, shift blame, or worse, they'll try to flip it back on you. You need to be prepared before you step into that. That's why you move through official channels, credit bureaus, fraud alerts, freezes if necessary. And if it's serious enough, you file FTC, FBI, local authorities if required. Yes, it feels extreme. It's not. What's extreme is someone using your identity without your consent. You're not escalating, you're responding appropriately. Another thing people get wrong, they wait. They think maybe it will fix itself. Maybe the person will come clean, maybe it's not as bad as it looks. That delay, that's what hurts you. Because while you're waiting, the system is still recording everything. Missed payments, new charges, growing balances. And the longer it sits, the more it becomes attached to you. Not them, you. There's also a risk most people don't think about. If you know something is wrong and you don't report it, it can come back on you. Not as the victim, as someone who allowed it to continue. That's a position you don't want to be in. So you act early, decisively, without apology. Now let's talk about the part no one prepares you for. The emotional side. Not the anger. That part is easy. The acceptance. The moment you realize the person who did this to you meant something to you, that's where people freeze. Because taking action feels like betrayal. It feels like you're choosing a system over a relationship. But here's the truth. They already made that choice. When they used your name. When they opened those accounts. When they hid it from you. They chose themselves. You're just responding. That's not betrayal. That's alignment with reality. And reality doesn't care about how things used to be. It cares about what's happening now. There's also this idea that you need to save people. Fix it quietly. Keep it in the family. Protect the image. That mindset is what allows this kind of behavior to continue. Because it removes consequences. And without consequences, nothing changes. You don't have to destroy someone's life to hold them accountable. But you do have to stop protecting them from the results of their actions. That's the line. And it's not always clean. It's not always comfortable. But it's necessary. If you don't draw it, someone else will draw it for you. And you won't like where it lands. So here's the part I want you to take with you. You are not responsible for fixing what you didn't break. You are not obligated to sacrifice your stability to cover someone else's decisions. And you are definitely not required to stay silent when your identity is being used against you. Protecting yourself is not selfish. It's basic responsibility to your life, your future, your name. Because once that's compromised, everything else follows. I didn't win anything in this situation. I didn't come out of it celebrating. I came out of it clear. Clear about what matters. Clear about what I allow. And clear about what I don't. That's the real outcome. Not revenge, not justice. Clarity. And once you have that, everything else gets simpler. Not easier, but simpler. So if you've ever found yourself in a situation where someone expected you to carry their weight, to clean up their mess, to sacrifice your stability so they could avoid consequences, I want you to think about one thing. What is it costing you to keep saying yes, not emotionally, practically? Because that number is always higher than you think. And once you see it, you have a decision to make. You either keep paying it or you stop. That's it. If this story helped you see something more clearly, if it made you question something you've been ignoring, or if it gave you a direction you didn't have before, drop a comment, let me know. Because this isn't rare. It just isn't talked about enough. And if you want more stories like this, ones that don't just entertain you, but actually give you something you can use, hit subscribe. Because the goal here isn't just to tell stories, it's to make sure you don't end up in one like this.